Hello and welcome to another edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director here at GNAT-TV's News Project, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Also a pleasure to be joined today by Ann Hunter, who is a writer, illustrator, and author from Shaftesbury, who has published more than a dozen books since her first one in 1996. She's a children's author and illustrator, and really pleased to have you with us today to tell us a little bit, and take us behind the scenes, I guess, if you will, of the whole craft of writing and getting published as well. So I thought, Anne, we could get started by having you describe your books a little bit. And how did you get into the world of doing children's books?
Well, I was living in Portland, Maine, and I had graduated from college. I did study illustration, and I started out being a editorial illustrator for newspapers and magazines and advertising and sticker design and t-shirt design and all kinds of art design stuff. And then as I took my work around, people would say, art directors, oh, my kids would really love this. And I had taken a short class on children's book illustration, so I knew how to lay out a children's book dummy, how long a children's book is, and that kind of thing to get me started. So on the side, I was doing this project where I wrote and illustrated a book and slowly working along on it. And I sent it off to 5 publishers, I think. And then 2 weeks later, the phone rang and it was Houghton Mifflin. And they took, and they took it. And that was back when there were fewer illustrators and authors out there, probably better chances of getting published. And the book did so well that it got taken. It was called a flying start by Publishers Weekly because it had sold, I don't know what the criteria is. I don't know if it's the highest sales in a week or a month or the first year, but anyway, it hit this goal for a first-time author. So then I was sort of in.
So I'm just wondering, does the artwork and the illustration drive a children's book more than, let's say, the plot or the story, or are they both kind of co-equal in terms of, you know,
it all depends.
Shaping the story?
Yeah. I call mine a picture-driven picture book because the art usually comes first, and I use the writing as scaffolding or an underlayment. And so I work back and forth. I start with the art, and then I work back and forth. I write, and it sort of swings back and forth between the two.
And do the ideas come from any place in particular, or just sort of random events from life, or do you sit down at the desk and think, okay, what's my next book going to be about?
It's hard to make it happen on demand, I think. That first book, I said, okay, I'm going to sit down and think of a story. I was interested in nocturnal animals, and from that came my first book, which was called Possum's Harvest Moon. And then there was a sequel to that, and I also illustrate for other writers. So I go back and forth between writing for myself and illustrating for other people. But some of my books are nonfiction. I had a series of 4 nature guides, so that's its own thing. Writing-wise, that's just doing research. And then so the second of the possum series came from an idea, which was that the spring peepers, the frogs that you hear in the spring, were like an alarm clock for the hibernating animals. Time to wake up. Maybe not so happy about that, you know? And so I keep a little notepad in my car. I keep one on me, and I have these little ideas occasionally. Oh, there's an idea for a book, and it's just a springboard, and it could come usually when I'm driving, those ideas. But I've always got my ears out because it's hard to sit down and say, okay, now I'm going to write a story and sit at your desk and have it just...
Yeah, well, a few times I've tried to do that. I usually hit the wall very quickly, you know, given no meaning to the term writer's block or whatever.
Yeah.
But how long do they tend to take to write? I guess everyone has this idea of children's book, particularly if you're an artist and you're doing the illustrating, that, you know, it kind of flows fairly quickly. But maybe it's like writing, you know, some dense novel that it doesn't exactly just flow out of the keyboard
because Because I illustrate and write together, I wouldn't don't think I will ever be writing for somebody else to illustrate. And because they're picture books, they take about 4 months. I figure I could do, if I had nothing else going on, I probably would do 3 a year. But that's with whole pieces of artwork. You know, that's a lot of art, especially the way I work. Some people are very fast, and I'm in the middle there somewhere. So.
Yeah, I envy those who can just sort of sit down and seem to kind of just churn out, you know, deathless prose and, you know, out you come. So, of course, the writing process, I guess, is one half of the narrative, and the other half would be getting it published and out there into the market. Walk us through how that works. I mean, I guess my sense of it is that 25 or 30 years ago, authors were fairly limited in how they kind of got their work out into the wider world.
Yeah.
You got an agent, let's say, and the agent went to a publisher, and if all went well, the publisher, like Houghton Mifflin, you know, went, oh wow, this is great, and phone rings and so forth and so on. And but now there seems to be multiple routes that a would-be writer can take to kind of getting a book out in the world.
Well, when I started out, I didn't have an agent, and I've been a parent and done other things sort of in the last 20 years or so since my first book came out. Now I'm kind of getting more into it again, and I go to conferences, and a lot of people have agents now. There's such a demand. I mean, there's so many writers and illustrators that they need their work to be vetted before it goes to the publisher, because they would just be probably, you know, stacks, too much. So now you almost have to, unless you're well-known, a lot of people do need to have an agent. So it's a little bit more business-like in that way.
And if you wanted to kind of do it yourself in terms of publishing, I mean, my sense of it is that there are self-publishing opportunities or other ways you can go other than that traditional route of going to a book publisher. I
haven't done that, but I have thought about doing that. And I have a book coming out next January that got taken finally, but I really like this book, and no one would take it. And I have an agent, and a pretty good agent. It went all around, was taken to different publishing houses, and everybody said no. And so I thought, okay, now I'm going to self-publish. And I felt great about it, actually, although it is a lot of work, because I don't know that much about it, but I think, you know, you have to get a publicist, and you really need to put it all together yourself, which is kind of a big job. But then at the last minute, I knew someone, and they showed it to their publisher, and they got taken. So I don't know too much about it, but I do think that it offers a great opportunity for diversity in literature, because it's a big business, and publishers don't want to take a chance necessarily on something that might be great, but they don't really know. And so they might pass on something that has a lot of merit. And it's wonderful that people can just say, okay, I'm just going to do this myself, instead of just having blockbusters out there.
Yeah. Do you have someone who edits your work before you send it out there, or do you basically edit it all yourself?
I edit, and my agent, I have a newish agent. I guess she doesn't edit. No, I haven't had anything edited, and actually, my editors have worked very sort of hands-off, so minimal. I'm lucky in that way. Also, I write very sparely. I'm not verbose, so just light editing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder, because, like, you know, I've talked to a few authors who you know, there's a second reader that kind of goes through and says, well, you know, you can condense this, or, you know, expand that, or whatever, and sometimes that helps, you know, move the book along or whatever.
Well, and for picture books, there's a lot of gutting that goes on. Gutting as in getting rid of just anything extra, because it's a whole book the words, when I type it up, it fits onto a regular sheet of paper. That's
Okay.
a whole book.
Wow,
So it's
okay.
very, very spare.
Yeah.
And I think when people start out, that's the main editing process, is getting rid of a lot of superfluous.
I guess I just wondered, for children's books, you don't normally think of this, but have you ever thought about doing like an e-book, or an all electronic book,
Well, so
as opposed to
now-
the traditional one?
Yes, and now for my last, I don't know how many few books, there's an electronic edition to all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have one in the works as well. It's coming out, next year? Is that
Two
it?
books. One of them I wrote, one of them I just illustrated, yes.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering, did you, when you're engaged in a project, in a book project, is it one of those things where you feel the need to kind of work on it a little bit every day, or is that one of these things where you can do a little bit one day and a week can go by and before the next installment
Yeah.
gets put in?
Well, that's a really personal thing, I think, depending on what people's lives look like. And I have a lot to balance in my family life. So I had for these last couple books, I've had very limited time. So I get up in the morning and I work for a couple hours, and then I get a couple hours in the afternoon. So I'm getting about 4 hours. But actually, I did my best work because I think it's very intense work, and I thought, oh, well, maybe this is a new thing, like very small increments. And when you're on a deadline, I definitely work every day. And if I was fully 3 books a year, I would be working. You'd have to work every day. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, again, I've spoken to some writers who said, well, I get up in the morning at 5 o'clock or whatever, 6:30,
Yeah.
and by 10 o'clock I've written 500 words, and I've got to do that,
Right.
So it's interesting.
I think I hear a lot of people getting up early in the morning and writing, and I think it's sort of a brain drain, I think, and I think then you have to go do something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I also wondered, how does the marketing side of all of this work? Does the publisher expect you to kind of do a lot of the lifting when it comes to kind of promoting your work, or is that something that they would still see as part of their job?
More and more, it's falling more to the authors, I think. So my first books came out before computer really was widely used and social media was not a thing at all. And now I get a form that said, you need to choose something. You can do Facebook, you can do Instagram, you can ideally blog or Twitter or tweet, and go to book fairs and that kind of thing. So I am not, I'm a little bit of an introvert and also busy, so I don't have a lot of time freedom. I do a minimal Facebook, and then I'm on Instagram, which I actually have come to really enjoy a lot. But a lot of people blog, and I just feel like the world must be full of people talking out there constantly about something, and I'm not in that.
Well, Instagram would seem like a natural one because it's kind of image driven,
Yeah.
right?
So when I started Instagram, I went to a conference and I wasn't doing it, and I said to people, well, everybody was talking about it, and they said, oh, you've got to do that, and they told me how to do it, and I didn't. I had just gotten an iPhone, and so they said, just look it up, the instructions, and do it, and I started, and then I realized there was the whole world of illustrators and authors were out there. Not everybody is on this, but all my idols were out there. All these people who I think, oh, they're fabulous, and they might be living in South America or in France or in Iceland or something, and they're putting not only their books on there, but their daily work, or what their yard looks like, or here's my cat, and then this is the sketches I just did that aren't going anywhere, but that we could all see this. And now I have, because I live sort of in the woods here in Vermont, and I don't have a lot of peers or people who are professional friends. Now I have this international group of people who comment on my stuff, and I can look at theirs, and it's just a really wonderful, creative place to it's like going to a museum, really. Like
Yeah.
only in the back of the museum, not just the shiny, beautiful, done stuff, but you can see work in process.
Yeah, well, that must be fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
To,
It's wonderful.
Kind
Yeah.
of go behind the scenes of all
Yeah.
that. I was just wondering, it seems like so many writers today need to be like on Amazon to be selling books. Is that something that happens sort of automatically once your book is out there, or is there some special process that goes on that gets your book onto?
I don't know how that happens. All my books have been on Amazon. I encourage people to use their independent bookstore, and I do that, but you can go on Amazon and all the reviews are there. The professional reviews from Booklist or from Publishers Weekly are there under your book, and people can write commentary or whatever. It's kind of nice, like if I'm looking at someone else's book, I might go to Amazon and see what the reviews are of it or what people say and get a little view of it. But that seems, I'm not sure how they get on there, and I'm not sure how you get on there once you're self-published, but I know it does happen.
Oh, interesting. I just wanted to do the last question. What advice would you give to aspiring writers or people who want to work in children's this children's genre like you do?
Yeah, for children's books, I'd say you would want to look up the Society, SCBWI. It's Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and it's a national or maybe even international organization that will teach you everything pretty much that you need to know. And you can go to workshops, but you can also just read online all the instructions about how long the book is. The whole process is laid out for you there. The do's and don'ts, nonfiction, photography, everything is there. It's a wonderful resource. I'd also say go to the bookstore and look at books, or the library, and look at books, see how long they are. Children's books are very specific because there's an arc of the story. Well, you only have about 15 spreads or 30 pages to a book. And so it's not a very long, big arc to have a setting, something happen, and then a resolution in the end. So that's very important, just to get an idea of the parameters of what you're doing.
So if folks wanted to find out more about your books, they can go to your website.
Yes,
And the URL on that is?
It's www.AnnHunterIllustrator, I think, or AnnHunterStudio.com. Could be Ann Hunter Illustration. Anyway, I'm under illustration.
Or just Google
Ann with
Ann.
an E. Yeah.
Just Google
right.
Ann Hunter.
Yes, and you can, and on there's all my website and all kinds of other stuff. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by today.
You're welcome.
About
That was
this.
fun.
It's really interesting to kind of go behind the scenes of what happens to make all this stuff happen. And thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
And thank all of you for being with us today. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again the next time. Have a great day.